Good morning, everyone. For today, my focus is to share with you how we can simplify your business with artificial intelligence, aka AI in short. I will begin with a basic introduction of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning in a nutshell. Then I will talk about the recent advances in generative AI and the applications which we have seen out there. From there, I will share a basic framework that originated from Shell called ESSA, which is the abbreviation for Eliminate, Simplify, Streamline, and Automate. And then I'll share 3 key studies on how you can use AI to supercharge your business. Last but not least, I share what is exciting and will be coming soon in the age of generative AI. Let's get started. Let's baseline on what AI and machine learning means in the context of today's conversation. Artificial intelligence is a technique for building systems that mimic human behavior or decision making. Machine learning is a subset of AI that uses data to solve tasks. These solvers are trained models of data that learn based on information provided to them. This information is derived from probability theory and linear algebra. ML algorithms use our data to learn and automatically solve predictive tasks. Deep learning is a subset of machine learning which leverages on multi-layered neural networks to solve these tasks. Let us examine the different forms of machine learning. Supervised learning. Think of supervised learning like teaching a child with flashcards. Each flashcard has a picture on one side, like an apple, and the name on the picture on the other side, the word apple. In supervised learning, the computer is given a lot of these flashcards data where each piece has both the picture and the name label. The goal is for the computer to learn to correctly identify new pictures it hasn't seen before. This method is used for tasks like recognizing handwriting, detect safety in a construction site, or categorizing emails as spam or not spam. Unsupervised learning. Imagine you have a big box of different kinds of toys, car, dolls, balls, etc., but they're all mixed up. In unsupervised learning, no one tells the computer what each toy is. Instead, the computer looks at all the toys and tries to sort them into groups based on similarities it finds by itself. So it ends up grouping cars together because they all have wheels, but beforehand it wasn't told what a car is. This type of machine learning is good for discovering patterns or groupings in data where we might not have specific labels or categories. In my experience in the Human Genome Project, we have deployed unsupervised learning to search for mRNAs as target sites for different biological activities. Reinforcement learning. This is like training a dog with treats. The dog isn't told exactly what to do. Instead, it learned by trial and error. When the dog does something right, like sitting, when you say sit, it gets a treat, a positive reward. If it does something wrong, it gets no treat or maybe even get a mild scolding, which is a negative reward or penalty. In reinforcement learning, the computer learns by making choices and getting feedback based on these choices. It's often used in scenarios like teaching a computer program to play a game or a robot to perform tasks where it gets rewards for correct actions and penalty for incorrect ones. Of course, Google DeepMind has used reinforcement learning to train an AI Go player and defeated Lee Sedol, a top South Korean Go player in 2016, and defeated human professional players in a game of StarCraft 2 in 2019. They have since applied this method to protein folding problem, which in turn give the technology for pharmaceuticals to search for the next set of drug targets. With machine learning, you can see a vast array of applications in the real world. Online fraud detection in payments, translation of languages say from English to Chinese, medical diagnosis with image recognition, recommendation engine on an e-commerce site, forecasting of product sales, and many more. Something happened in 30 November 2022, which took AI into the mainstream, and that is Chat-GPT, developed by OpenAI. The word GPT means generated pre-trained transformers. We have seen different applications of Chat-GPT from asking cook recipes, develop travel plans, and extracting and summarizing content from news sites, data analysis of small data sets, and even code generation. But the innovation happens a few years back. The innovation came from the industry by a famous paper published by Google researchers called "Attention is All You Need." The transformer architecture in this paper began the innovation that led to the creation of GPTs, generated pre-trained transformers. Instead of taking you through the technical details, I'll explain a few key concepts on what we call large language models or LLMs. LLMs are the bedrock to generative AI. It is pre-trained using a vast amount of data at scale and can be adapted by fine-tuning using reinforcement learning with human feedback or in-context learning. There are a few features. Generative nature. A large LLM can write essays, create charts and websites, generate computer code, or more. Self-supervised learning. They can learn from unlabeled data and open doors to training on almost unlimited data. Multimodal learning. Allow multiple forms of data like images, sound, text, and audio, and even video that mimic human-level-like experiences. Fine-tune with little capacity, with few-shot or zero-shot learning to perform tasks that are not included in their training examples. Prompting is a crafted statement to elicit a response from the large language model. As for chain-of-thought prompting, it means to generate a series of intermediate steps before giving the final answer, allowing the model to solve multiple step problems. Of course, there are other techniques to prompt the system. There are different LLMs in the market differentiated between closed and open source. The closed source ones are OpenAI GPT-4 with GPT-5 in the works, Google's Gemini, while you can find all open source LLMs from Hugging Face, for example, Llama 2 by Meta, Mistral AI in France, and Li Kai-Fu Zero X AI in China, and of course not to forget our homegrown Sea Lion by AI Singapore. From there, you can get a few applications of generative AI. For example, you can do image generation with Midjourney or create a video with Google's Music LLM. Recently, Midjourney has a new feature called Consistent Character where you can get the same character image but in different variations. You can search for information with a query. Instead of Googling for a subject, there is a new tool called Perplexity AI where you can key in a query and get information on the subject with cited references. Here is where I think enterprises would love to know what they have. Allow me to introduce the concept of Retrieval Augmented Generation (RAG), which is the technique for enhancing the accuracy and reliability of generative AI's models with facts fetched from external sources. Prior to Chat-GPT, you can pay for a subscription to get Copilot to augment your coders. Of course, generative AI has supercharged coding. Companies like Magic Dev and Ignition AI are working on AI co-workers to build apps and software games using generative AI. One anecdote I can share is that when I first set up a coding team in Vietnam, we did an experiment for coders who just graduated in their first year. By splitting 12 coders into 2 teams, we provide one set with Copilot and the other without. We discover coders with Copilot can develop their work quicker at a 50% improvement in productivity for the first 3 months. And then we just open it up for everyone and it speed up the delivery for our apps. To simplify your business with AI, you need a framework. If you work in Amazon like I used to, you will invent and simplify. I prefer this method from Shell, which sounds old school but applicable today, called ESSA: Eliminate, Streamline, Simplify, and Automate. Do not attempt to put AI into your workflow because you can bottleneck the other processes within the workflow. First, look at the workflow and see what AI can eliminate and be holistic. Reduce the number of bottlenecks and redundancy. The next is simplify, where you reduce the information overload, steps, and reporting text. Then you streamline by working towards a consistent and uniform process. And once you achieve the first 3 steps, then you automate your workflow. I'll tell you 3 stories in how AI can simplify your business. The first story is content creation augmented by generative AI. The best way to illustrate this is to show you how I've done this with my own video podcast. I ran a video podcast called Analyze Asia, which focused on business, technology, and media in Asia. Over the years, I've interviewed 250 plus distinguished guests over 9 years and published 436 episodes to date. When I first started with doing the podcast in audio, I spent about 5 to 7 hours per episode without AI. Of course, the podcast project is a side hustle. With 3 kids in the household, I have to figure out how to do this at low cost. By 2022, I switched to video, and it made the workload up to at least 15 hours per episode. Of course, with AI, I can now reduce that down to 2 to 3 hours, and let me show you how I managed to do this. When I first started, I broke down my workflow of making a podcast into 5 steps, and it works for both audio and video. The first is sourcing. I have to write an email to the person I want to interview. The second step is preparation, where I open up a Google Docs and prepare a set of questions for the guest. When the guest agrees to come on my show, we proceed to the third step, recording. For the first 3 steps, you will need at least 3 hours of time. Then you proceed the most difficult part of the process, editing the podcast, and I use a very simple editing app to do that. That usually takes 3 to 5 hours, depending on the quality of the audio. Last but not least, the last step is to publish and distribute the podcast, and usually you need an hour to come up with the social media content. I'll share 2 simple plugins made for Chat-GPT that are integrated to my daily workflow now. The first plugin is called GM+, where you can find at least 50 plus different templates, and with a simple prompt like, can you help me craft an email to invite this guest, specifically explaining why she is the best person to explain this subject X to me, you will craft an email and then you edit it and send it to the person. Do not take the content generated wholesale, as you will still need to read and edit it to suit your style of communication. You can research your guests now with YouTube Summary. In the past, I would spend at least an hour to research on my guest, looking at his or her past interviews on YouTube and look for common themes and niche angles to present the story. With this YouTube Summary plugin, I just need to click on the YouTube video and it will pull the transcript of the video into ChatGPT and then produce 5 key takeaways. Of course, this is a simple use of the application. After doing a few transcripts, I incorporate different techniques in prompting to extract out what are the common and not so often asked questions for the interviewee and create the interview questions. I'm going to talk about an app called Descript. The simple way to describe Descript is that you can edit video and audio like the way you edit text in Google Docs. In fact, with a simple search and replace command, you can use AI tools to remove filler words and repeats, suggesting ideas and produce a transcript. You can even add features onto the video and create an AI voice in less than a minute. What would you do with the AI voice? You can use a feature called Overdub, and in one step, you can add words that you missed during your conversation with the guest in the interview, and let me show you in one simple demo. Here is a view of the Descript on my Mac, and you can find the same app in Windows as well. Prior to this demo, I've uploaded a video I've recorded in 2 minutes. Descript will transcribe the video with the words you see here on this video. Now, you can also see some filler words which Descript has already highlighted, like the ums and the ahs, a repeated word like interview, and of course, other repeated words as well. All you have to do is go to Action and look for Remove Filler Words. And what it does is that it will identify all the filler words over on this side of the screen. And all you just need to do is remove all. And that's done. But one of the superpowers of Descript is that you can actually record your voice and either add a word you miss into the file or change a word inside. Here's how you do it. You click on the word interesting and you want to do a replace, and you do this function called Overdub, where I pre-recorded my AI voice and change the word into engaging. And that's what happens, and Descript will try to make the change in the word. Now, let's get back to the talk. Welcome back. With AI, I've managed to make sourcing, preparation, publishing work down to 1.5 hours. Of course, the Zoom recording is still 60 minutes, but I've seen technologies using AI avatars, and maybe someday I can deploy an AI avatar to do the interview instead of me. I'm joking, of course, here. But with the script, I've actually outsourced the job to a podcast producer outside. AI did not destroy his job, but instead it gave him the tools to scale to a few more clients. Next, I want to talk about data analysis. When I was in academia, I've worked on very large data sets from the Human Genome Project. The fun part is to do the data storytelling and work out what the insights you can find from the data. However, a big chunk of the data needs to be processed, checked, and cleaned, and there might be missing data. Once that happens, you can perform the data analysis, and let me show you with a demo on how generative AI can now do with one simple data set. For this demo, I went to the Department of Statistics Singapore to search for the Consumer Price Index data, or CPI data in short. Prior to this, I've downloaded a data set, CPI for general households with 2019 as the base year. The first step is to get Chat-GPT 4 to read the data set. Due to the processing time, I've pre-run the entire data analysis process here. So the first thing I do is use a technique called perspective prompting, where I ask Chat-GPT to imagine itself as a data scientist. Chat-GPT, just by reading the CPI data, was able to describe the contents of what the spreadsheet data is. You can have different from there. You can ask Chat-GPT for different options on how to analyze and visualize the data sets. What is interesting is that you can also ask Chat-GPT to clean up the data. For example, input missing values or apply imputations. I have actually looked at some crypto trading data sets, which I thought it would take me 5 days because I used to do data science work, and it turns out that it only took me 26 seconds to do it on Chat-GPT. Last but not least, you can actually, after getting all the ideas on how to visualize the graph and get Chat-GPT to plot out a line chart on how the CPI changed between a certain period of time you designated. And here is actually Chat-GPT showing you a line chart illustrating the CPI index for the years of 2019 and 2020. And let's get back to the talk. Welcome back. Let's come to the last use case. This is a common problem that many business owners have asked me on how to use AI and solve them. In fact, I've done an actual implementation as a former CIO from a Singapore construction conglomerate. Let's start from a construction site. And the same method can work for a retail store or a restaurant outlet. The original workflow goes like this. On the site, you are the procurement person on site and get an invoice from a concrete supplier or a subcontractor. So you upload that into a Microsoft SharePoint, and the invoice will be reviewed by someone in the HQ in the procurement department. That will be converted into a payment certificate so that you can send to the supplier, get the goods delivered, and pay the supplier in the process. However, you do need to send emails internally to get approval from the different stakeholders within the company. Finally, the payment certificate and invoice need to be sent to finance via uploading into another SharePoint so that they can key into their financial ERP such as SAP, NetSuite. If you are a digital person, you will see the problem with this approach is that 3 different people, the procurement person on the site, the procurement manager in HQ, and the finance director all need to re-input the details of the invoice. The simplest way to do this workflow is that the input should be done at least once so that everyone can get a single source of truth digitally. How can we do that? So, what we did as a digital team is to start from the source. When the first invoices come from the construction site, the procurement person from the construction site uploads the digital copy into the system, but it will be scanned by an AI OCR system such as Amazon TextTrack or Azure Recognizer, where it can be done with a simple API. Then the information is verified by someone in the HQ and a payment certificate is generated. From there, it will send through an approval process where it can be tracked digitally. As the information is verified, we can then push the same data into the financial ERP system. This simplifies the entire process. The method I have detailed above sounds easy, but in reality, there are potential issues. AI OCR doesn't work all the time. In fact, it works only 50 to 70% of the time. There are some methods to potentially improve the process. For example, custom training some of the invoices with specific formats and telling the AI to look for specific regions in the document for the data. In fact, AI is a continuously adaptive system where it will improve the OCR as time goes on. All you need to ensure is that your workflow takes those edge situations into consideration. So what's coming next? Since November 2022, the field of generative AI is changing every week with new announcements. Hence, what I will say today will be superseded by another generative AI announcement tomorrow. So I'll just share two recent innovations that are coming, but specifically in the generation of video. The first is Sora by OpenAI. Sora is an AI model that can create realistic and imaginative scenes from text instructions. The video here is generated with a prompt. A stylish woman walks down a Tokyo street filled with warm glowing neon and animated city signage. She wears a black leather jacket, a long red dress, and black boots and carries a black purse. She wears sunglasses and red lipstick. She walks confidently and casually. The street is damp and reflective, creating a mirror effect of the colorful lights. Many pedestrians walk about. Another innovation is Emote Portrait Alive, where you can generate expressive portrait videos just with one picture. You can see the video here, a reference image, and the AI can generate a video on the person singing. It also shows that the gap between China and the US in AI are relatively close and the race is still on. Of course, with so much innovations coming from generative AI, how can ISS help you and your business journey? Let us share the how. We have a variety of graduate programs and executive education tailored to your needs in machine learning, where you can learn different techniques in machine learning, for example, CNNs, LSTMs, RNNs, and computer vision models. Our AI courses can help to jumpstart the AI journey for your business as well. Speaking of which, we have recently started 4 new courses which are designed to cater to business and government needs. We have a generative AI for business and government leaders, where we do a 2-day course to help senior executives to think strategically and learn through hands-on workshop on how to use generative AI to improve the productivity of their teams. We have done that course recently for a government institution and our board members. The second course, Generative AI to Supercharge Business Processes and Products, is where we work with businesses over a 2-day course with a real-world use case studies on how you can integrate AI into the business processes like the one I've spoken about and how to deal with the exceptions. As companies in Singapore and overseas are building their AI teams, ML operations are going to be important, and we work with the industry to teach you how to pre-process your data, train the model, and monitor the model drift with responsible AI incorporated, but at scale. Last but not least, some companies might need their own large language models. Of course, our new enterprise LLM course will first take you through how to fine-tune a large language foundation model with reinforcement learning, and then proceed towards building either a retrieval augmented generation engine, where you can chat with your data, or pre-train your own LLM.